Hi everyone, this is Luca and today we will talk about the sound of Metallica. Hi everyone, this is Luca, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we will talk about the sound of Metallica and the sound that I've used and I created to perform this Creeping Death cover. I tried to nail the guitar tone of the second studio album of Metallica, Ride the Lightning, one of my favorite Metallica album actually. I really like all the songs and the sound as well. Even if it's just the second album, I still love it now until these days. This sound tutorial is tailored on the editor of the MOOER GE200, but if you have any other platform or system, I'm sure that you can take some advices from this particular tutorial. So let's talk about the gear that I used. I used the Dunlop Jets 3 picks, these red ones, the small one. And I've used my EVH guitar with a DiMarzio Super Distortion on the bridge. And that's the only pickup that I used for this particular tone. And also my trusty MOOER GE200. So, to be fair, I tried to nail the Metallica sound for a long time and I never succeeded. A few weeks ago I tried to nail the Master of Puppets tone, but I wasn't really happy with the results. It's really hard tone to nail, and honestly I think that guitar sound is heavily EQ'd in the mixing process as well, so it's really hard to have the same sound with just this gear that I have. I remember that I could go a little bit closer to the original sound if I tweaked the EQ on Cubase, but since I want to deliver the patches, the sound, that it's like ready to be recorded, I wasn't satisfied with the result. So I tried to listen to Ride the Lightning. This is actually one of my favorite Metallica records, and yeah, I got a little bit more lucky. Because I think that the sound is way more achievable. I think it's less processed and it's a little bit more raw in a way. So I guess that you guys will appreciate this particular patch. So let's dive into the editor so we can see which sound blocks did I use for this particular tone. So first of all, I used a noise gate. At the beginning I was trying to have the genty noise gate thing just for fun, and then I forgot to shut it down, and actually I used it. It's alright, I mean you don't really need it, but if you want you can just like leave it there. But let me shut down all the sound blocks for as usual so you can see step by step what I did. First of all, I used the Mark III emulation, okay? And you can see here that the EQ is kind of weird. There are almost like no bass and no mids and all about treble, presence, and master volume is really high and the gain is really low. This is also because if you ever tried a Mesa Boogie amplifier, the Mark III series especially, they're really strange amplifier. The EQ is actually a tone shaping tool, like way more than just an EQ. I remember I tried one of those. A dear friend of mine lent me the Mark III a couple of years ago, and I remember, for example, that the treble control, it's not just a treble control but also add gain. It adds gain to the sound. So I don't know if here it's the same, because I can't compare the Moore emulation with the real gear right now, but for some reason I found myself to have a kind of a similar settings, if I remember correctly. Also the bass, if you use too much bass on the Mark III series of amplifier, the bass will be too flabby. So yeah, that's why I didn't use a lot of bass. And the mid-range, I didn't use a lot of mid-range because the Metallica sound is kind of well known to be scooped, you know, in like a V sound. So it didn't feel the need to add any more mid than that. Gain wise, the tone is quite gainy, even if it's really low. So this is the sound without anything else. And to be fair, to have an amplifier with just like a 33 gain out of 10, out of 100, I'm sorry, it's pretty gainy actually. So that's why I didn't want to use more gain than that. Of course I used the overdrive as well, but I'm telling you about that later. Then I've used the Marshall cabinet. I am not sure if Metallica already had this kind of setup, but for what I know, Metallica used, can't remember when and in which album, but they used the Mark II C+ in a Marshall cabinet. And I'm not sure, but maybe they used as well the Marshall power amplifier. So they would use just the pre section of the Mesa and then going straight to the Marshall section. So this is what I tried to do here. Is that so you can see that the tube power amp section is the EL34, that will give you more bite in the mid range, and the cabinet is the Marshall one. So this is the sound with the EL34. If I'm using the 6L6s, listen to what happened to the bass and the mid range. You can definitely hear that the sound is like more boomy on the bass frequencies, and the mid-range are more gentle. Okay, so I guess that EL34 thing is really a good one. It's a good thing because it will give you more bite. Yeah, then of course, to have more gain and to tighten up the sound a bit more, I've used the Gold Clone. I know that maybe the Tube Screamer would have been more appropriate for Metallica sound, but I like the Gold Clone more, so that's why I used it. And you can see the volume is really low, it's really high. The tone is at maximum, it's 100, and the gain is really low, so it's really like a treble booster kind of setting. And this is the sound with the overdrive on. Yeah, for me that's already a super nice Metallica tone of that era. It's way more tight, and yeah, it gives me the perfect gain structure for me. Of course, I forgot to mention before, but I recorded the guitar, like double tracked the guitar, and I panned the guitar left and right. I know it's kind of like trivial to say that, but It's really important. So the sound that you heard on Creeping Dead on my cover, it's powerful also because it's double tracked, okay? So it's left and right, like stereo. Like everybody does that. It's not a big secret, but just to be fair, I mention it. Okay, then what I've used a additional EQ, and this EQ is being used to try to refine more the sound. I actually prefer not to play with the EQ on, but with the EQ on, the sound it's closer to the original one. I didn't pump the bass anymore because I think it was too much, so I couldn't do the proper V shape that you would probably do if you have the real deal, the real amplifier. But since, as I told you before, I want to use an EQ that is ready to be played on the backing track, I think this is better. Then the 750 Hz has been attenuated a lot in order to try to have that V, the typical V that I was talking about before. And then I tried to pump a little bit the 2200 Hz and 6600 Hz as well, to have a little bit more of a bite on those frequencies without exaggerating too much. That's always because I didn't want to use any other EQ on Cubase. Otherwise, I could have done a more defined V and then attenuate with Cubase, but I didn't do it because I wanted to have like the patch that is ready for you guys. So with the EQ, the sound is this one. Yeah, and as you can probably hear, the sound is even more appropriate, as even closer to the original one. And yeah, so that's it. Last thing, the reverb. In this album, Metallica used a bit of reverb, like a bit more than the other ones. And for this particular tone, I wanted to try the plate reverb. I think it works quite fine. And the sound is this one. Okay, and playing a riff. Yeah, so this is the reverb that I use. I think it's alright. So yeah, that's basically it for the sound of Metallica in Ride the Lightning album. So if you know more about this particular tone, if you are an expert about Metallica, just like drop a comment below and tell me if you know the perfect gear that they used for this particular tone, and tell me if like what your solution is to achieve this particular tone. I have also a Patreon account. You find the link in the description below if you want to help me out. This patch was already available 3 days ago when I released the track. You can also find some backing tracks, tablatures, guitar profiles and stuff like that, plus the chance to have a Skype lesson with me. Tell me if you're interested about it. And if you didn't already, guys, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and see you next time. Ciao.